All right, we're continuing our discussion about igneous rocks, fourth graders. This time, we're going to do this sheet right here, where you've got the little guy that's kind of dressed like a geologist, like he's studying rocks. And we're going to read the passage, and then there's some questions. Mr. Gribnow has left a note here that says you can answer these questions on a Google Doc. So you can start a Google Doc. Remember, when you do Google Docs, you can use voice to text, right? You can go into the tools and choose the microphone, and that way you can speak your answers and it will record it in a Google Doc. Make sure that you have your name, your header on the paper. If you're doing a Google Doc for this, you've got to have your header, which means you've got your name, you've got your homeroom, G, B, or P, whichever one it is, and the date. All right? That's what I forgot, was put the date up here. Sorry. Anyway, make sure you got your header when you do a Google Doc so Mr. Gribnow knows that it came from you and knows who your homeroom teacher is, okay? And you can use voice to text, or if you don't want to do that, you can just turn your paper over and you can write the answers on the back, okay? So, let's read this. Igneous rocks. Igneous rocks are formed from magma, which comes from inside the Earth's surface. When volcanoes erupt, the hot magma rises and then it cools. Once it's cooled, it forms igneous rocks. Magma has been around since the beginning of Earth, and it is what makes igneous rocks possible. There are igneous rocks all over the Earth's crust from this constant activity under the surface of the Earth. Igneous rocks are divided into two categories: extrusive, remember from our last one we learned that was outside, and intrusive. That means it's inside the Earth's crust. Okay? Now I lost my place. Let's see. Extrusive and intrusive. The intrusive rocks are on the surface of the Earth and only show after the rock is deposited above them or eroded away by the weathering process. That's a little confusing to me. I'm going to read that sentence again. The intrusive rocks are on the surface of the Earth and only show after the rocks and deposits above them are eroded away by the weathering process. So intrusive, they form under the Earth's crust, and then after the rock above them gets weathered away, then we see this intrusive rock, because they are not above ground. They have formed underground, okay? There. Extrusive rocks happen when volcanoes erupt the lava, which then solidifies on the Earth's surface and becomes igneous rocks. Okie dokie. Whether it's just above the Earth's crust or just below the Earth's crust, the melted rock can cool and harden to become igneous rocks. The most common igneous rock is granite, and it is also one of the strongest and most durable rocks. The rock's texture and amount of crystals it contains gives geologists, those people who study Earth, study rocks, clues about volcanic actions beneath the ground and help them determine how long it took the magma to cool and form landforms like mountains. The crystals in igneous rocks will be bigger if the rock cooled slowly, and they'll be smaller if the rock cooled quickly. There are 6 minerals that can make up the igneous rock. There are feldspar, quartz, pyroxene, olivine, and amphibole. Ooh, I don't know how to say that word. Amphibole. I'll look it up later and let you know if I was wrong. And mica. Examples of igneous rock include granite, basalt, and pumice. Okay, so here's the questions. Remember, you can answer these on a Google Doc, or you can write them on the back. After I read a question, pause, give your answer, come back, press play, listen to the next question. Question number 1. Some people refer to igneous rocks as fire rocks. Explain why you think that is. Answer that question, then come back. Number 2. Using first, next, and last, explain how igneous rocks are formed, okay? So, we talked about the fact that igneous rocks is when magma, molten rock, cools and hardens and becomes a rock. Can you explain that using the words first? And tell us what happens first. Next, what happens next? And then to tell us what happens last. First, next, then. Answer number 2, either on the back or in Google Docs, then come back. Granite is the most common igneous rock. How many uses can you name for granite? And it says you might need to ask an adult. Okay? So you can also do a Google search, uses for granite, and see what you can come up with. As it said in this passage, it's one of the hardest rocks. It's also quite pretty. All right, number 4. How can you remember the difference between intrusive and extrusive igneous rocks? Think about that one. Pause and answer. And this last question is confusing to me. Number 5 says, can you think of possible uses for sedimentary rocks? We've been learning about igneous rocks. Why are they asking us questions about sedimentary rocks? I don't know. You know what? I might be wrong. And Mr. Gribnow, if I am, this is my fault. I'm telling them to change that. Don't say sedimentary, igneous. Can you think of possible uses for igneous rocks? We talked about uses for granite. That's some, but are there other uses? What other uses for igneous rocks can you think of? If you want to do sedimentary, you can do that too. It just kind of bugs me that they asked about a different kind of rock. Okay, get your answers done, and you're done with another assignment for 4th grade science.